A map of our nuclear laboratories, or our national laboratories, which a lot of them are involved in nuclear. The three that are involved that the FBI has are the double NSA, it's called, here on Maryland Avenue in Washington, D.C., is Sandia Labs, Livermore Labs, and also, which is also out in Hawaii, California, Sandia and Livermore. And then Sandia also has a facility here in with Los Alamos in New Mexico. You see the one common thread here is Sandia, Sandia, Sandia. I think that's going to be an important laboratory in all of Hillary's dealings, in all the Navy dealings. And I believe Hillary and the Navy are much closer connected than people think. And I think Imran Awan is much closer connected to the Navy than most people realize. And that will become obvious over time. I think the facility here in Colorado, which is the renewable energy, is also developing small reactors, and their small reactors started here. Really, the whole idea of small reactors was so it could fit in a submarine. It used to take up a third of the submarine, so there was a constant push to make that reactor smaller, and it just makes sense to commercialize that technology and sell it to other navies of the world, and also manage the fuel chain, which the fuel chain of that is highly enriched uranium. So you've got a lot of buyers all over the world. If you watch my series and you talk about pay to play with Podestas and so forth, every navy of the world will be nuclear powered, and so every navy of the world is a customer. And then also they're a customer for fuel in addition to the reactors. So you sell both the razor blades and the blades. So this program was to take highly enriched uranium, which is good for those reactors, and downblend it into fuel for nuclear power plants. Now again, it has much more worth as a reactor for a Navy Corps. I can sell a submarine, and I'm the only game in town for the reactor fuel rods. But if I downblend it here, then now I compete with everyone else that's doing uranium spinning. Still a good deal, but this is much more profitable business. So what I want to do is use as much of this HEU before it gets downblended for submarine power plants, sell off what I can, that nuclear stock, and then what's left over, I have LEU. Now, the people who administrated this megatons to megawatts program, the idea here was to take 20,000 nuclear warheads and ship them downblend them first at these facilities in Russia, and then ship them to the United States through St. Petersburg. I believe the port of entry was South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina. You can see it's a rather circuitous path. You got to do some processing here. You got to move it over here to get it HEU over here. Then you got to move it over here. Then it goes back over here. It's a much shorter distance just to go straight to Ukraine. As a matter of fact, the Ukraine was the center of the nuclear power plant industry, and so these people both speak Russian. It's a very short trip. And if you wanted to manage those logistics from a distance, like Frederick, Maryland, it helps a lot to have the person have a Russian-speaking wife, and it also helps to have a brother-in-law who is Russian and knows all these truckers. So that's very helpful. So that's why I say Mark Lambert was very important for this. Him being in Navy intelligence also helps, and him being able to speak Arabic also helps, because a lot of the people that are recruited for these truckers are these Uzbekis and other Azerbaijanis and so forth. Okay, so just really quickly looking at the map, here is Ozersk, and it's a much shorter trip here over to Ukraine. So this explains sort of the Paul Manafort connection here with their developing nuclear industry. And then also here is Azerbaijan, and here is Iran. So Iran, I think, becomes the key customer of this highly enriched uranium for their Navy. So get all the Navy business off the board. It's sort of like, buy Park Place and Boardwalk first, then, work your way down to the greens and reds and oranges and yellows, right? So here's Bob Highly Enriched Uranium. I think he's, selling. Bob Highly Enriched Meuller is here in Georgia giving samples. I think he's giving samples for these different weapons programs for these different navies, Turkish Navy, etc., Iraqi Navy, Syrian Navy, what have you. This is sort of like a meeting point. It's almost like a convention center approach. Now, you go through all the highly enriched uranium, you make a lot of money, you don't have to do the downblending, and then you're going to have some left over to do the actual downblending. Okay, so that's where you're going to start. Also, Pakistan and India are also going to be in this. Those navies are going to be great customers. So it just gives you an idea how important Mark Lambert is to this whole thing. If both of his daughters speak Farsi, that's awfully helpful when you're trying to deal with Iran. And it's all really in one little Dragon distillery. You've got the whole story. Now let's go here. I'll just quickly show you the Navy reactors. Is the part of the Navy that does this. It is in Iowa, very close to where the Navy. Well, this was the original development center for those smaller reactors, which I then think there's another business to sell those different militaries in this area. Also sell them small nuclear reactors for backup or auxiliary power or even primary power if nobody's watching. So again, a great use for HEU. Why downblend it? Doesn't make any sense. Now there is a problem on the other end though that developed. Where is my uranium? Where's my highly enriched uranium? You were supposed to bring it into South Savannah River here. It was supposed to be down blended at, let's say, over here in Lynchburg, Virginia, or at BWX, or one of these down blending plants, or maybe over here at Oak Ridge in Tennessee, or in Kentucky, etc. at Paducah. Used to be down blended in Piketown, Ohio. Then Paducah, Kentucky got closed. Well, where do you down blend it? Well, let's say you don't. Let's just say, forget down blending altogether. Let's just start developing or taking and seizing mines out here in the West and then trucking it to backfill the nuclear stock at Oak Ridge. How about that? We'll crush it with the same technology we did over there and in Africa and other parts of the world. We'll crush it, turn it into yellow cake. We'll use the facility in Piketown to actually spin it to nuclear fuel level. That's only 3%. It can be as low as 2% or 1% even. And then we're good. Then we deliver these things to the different nuclear power plants. They don't know where it's been. As long as you can get around the paperwork, you're good to go. And that's exactly what I think happened. Really, at no point, I think this actually, uranium-1, which I think is going to be uranium-1 WONE, we took it from the Bundys, we took it from, the Finicum, the 390 uranium sites out here, we took it from the people up here in Wyoming, okay, at the Shinkolobwe. The uranium was so good in Wyoming at the Shinkolobwe, we took it there. So that's uranium WONE. That was really probably used all the way through when the original program started in 1992-93 is what I'm saying. And then they just kept bringing these Uzbeki truckers over as the business was cleared for the highly enriched uranium. It was stockpiled, I believe, in Ukraine, and then has just been used for resupplying the nuclear navy with these different reactors and small reactors. Not just navies, but also for doing navy bases, army bases, and so forth. And uranium-1, the reason why it spikes in 2015 is it looks like maybe Donald Trump or somebody like that may lose the election, win the election, and Hillary is, they starting having doubts about Hillary. We've got to build up our capability here. This is the pressure to do the nuclear deal in Iran, to get them spinning this stuff. And you have other nations like UAE, which is with the 123 program. And most of this stuff was just sold right there. The deal in Kazakhstan wasn't done until 2005 because just to backfill the uranium, the highly enriched uranium that Bob Mueller sold, that was missing. So the reason why all these stories now happen at the end of the nuclear fuel cycle. This is Lindsey Graham talking about he wants to continue building this plutonium processing plant and so forth, is I think this technology is actually going to fund these small reactor research and other types of nuclear waste research, and also for sending centrifuges and small reactors and so forth, and that R&D development for these Bechtel and other nuclear partners. So that's my short answer for Charles Ortel.